Hey, this is we back again. I'm telling you, dude. We had some heavy discussions these last 2 weeks. I got my partner over here. They call us Cisco and Ebert, but I think we more like Grady and Darnell. We'll take those two names. Yeah. So this is Keto Tay Business Consulting Group. This week we are really going to talk about not we got off the subject about conditional and conditional salvation and eternal salvation. We had a question that come in, and it's called weak vessel. Well, and we're gonna be doing almost like a free for all today. We gonna and when my friends talking over here, I'm gonna just interject a question or one or two questions to keep
Right.
them going. And he gonna do that to me. But you know me, he say the wrong question, and then he try to stop me from giving a full answer.
I
But
won't
that's
do it.
okay.
That this time, maybe.
Okay, well,
Maybe.
we're gonna start off with weak vessel then. Women think when you call them a weak vessel, that's something physical. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not up to par. What is your take on that? 1 Peter 3:7. You get that verse for me, please, and then we're gonna read it. And then once we read it, then we're going to discuss it. And likewise, ye husbands, because he's talking about ye husbands dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto a weaker vessel.
Right.
Unto the weaker vessel. So women have taken this negative, especially nowadays, because most of them are working and doing everything they need to do. Some of them are head of household, so they don't consider themselves, even though Peter's saying this. Grady, can you want to elaborate, or you want me to keep going? Or
Elaborate
on a weaker vessel. That sentence, are they a weaker vessel?
In a lot of respects, they are. When it comes to let's say, you can take a 100-pound woman and take a 100-pound man, and most likely that man would probably physically, dominate her physically.
But is that the intent?
But that was
trying to say.
Well, again, now that's not the intent. We don't believe what the Bible was referring to. We believe the Bible was referring to as Donnell said earlier. Well, it's more regards to the personality of a woman and how I would like to say she what a man isn't, she is. A man isn't necessarily gentle, kind, and women aren't necessarily as thoughtful as men in some ways. Not that they don't think, but they don't think like I said, thoughtfully. That because sometimes women are more impulsive in their actions, whereas a man may think twice about something before he go jumping off the boat into the water. So I mean, weak like in those kind of ways. That's about all it is.
But the physical piece.
Well, I said if a woman, 100-pound woman, and versus 100-pound man, most likely that man would dominate her. So that's more the physical part. But I said when we go to the spiritual personality, the spirituality of the woman, she's different and she's weaker in those ways because she's again. I believe you mentioned that she may be more inclined to because of her nature, allow her feelings and emotions to dictate her actions, where a man wouldn't do that. Okay, a man won't allow his feelings, emotions to do that. He's more inclined today to think before he takes some action. Well, a woman sometimes just react, just react to things in a manner that is physical in some ways, but it's more that's just more how they react to things.
Okay, so I'm gonna take.
But I'm not. Don't call what I say Bible.
No,
so like that. Just an
I'm
opinion.
gonna go. From a spiritual perspective, I'm always gonna look on it. Yeah, the physical is the physical, and that to me wouldn't apply. But what I would apply.
What wouldn't apply?
A lot of not what you just said. I say a lot of stuff that we think weaker vessel means won't apply. So I have to go to the book from a spiritual perspective. What did Peter really mean by that?
Right.
So young ladies and old women, whether you're young, old, whether you're married, even whether you're single, I think the what we call one time talking about the weaker may point to your tenderness. Women are tender, more tender than men. Women are emotional.
All those things.
Yeah, either more emotional sensitivity. That's why you make them upset. They have a tendency to react Just say if they don't, if something is out of order, they just go at it from an emotional standpoint, not from an intellectual, or they hit it from the emotional seat rather than first, and then they might come back to the intellectual seat, but they might even cool off, but the emotional piece will dominate them. And then you're talking about the emotional, or so-called what we call care and protection. That's a very important, even when we did enmesh, the women always like to be protected. So the weaker V's, when he said a husband, you got to do it, because he said you got to protect your wife. You got to protect her, and that's it. Not weaker in worth and dignity. You know, we look at weakness as a negative in the human side of the house. Yeah. We do. We look at, if you're not strong, you're not crying, you're not doing anything. You know, if you crying, you're weak.
Exactly.
And from God, even Jesus wept. You know, because he understood. One thing about Jesus, he understood women and that emotion. I can really hit somebody, a woman, and I have to come back. Because I see their reaction. They freeze. They freeze up, because they'll start with the emotional, not understanding what I meant. So I say, let me go back and understand what I meant, my intent,
right,
before you go to a craziness. And go ahead. You go ahead and say.
I agree. Sometimes when you're speaking to a woman and you can say something,
it's your tone too. It's a lot of things.
It could be a couple of things, yes. And they don't necessarily understand where you're coming from, because they're reacting to your words.
Exactly.
Not so much to how you feel. I mean,
what the intent of those words were. They acting of totally, if I say boom, and then they think in their mind, but they come on to the emotional piece of it. And they misinterpret what I say. So I say, I got to be careful what I say, because you looking at that same thing differently than what I meant it to be. So they you say, well, Donnell, you just lying, you just spinning it. I say, I know how to spin, but that have nothing to do. I say, I got to make sure you have a clear understanding of what I really intended that to be. Your reaction is more of the emotional side of the house, and you thinking based on how you think. I got to see how you're thinking what I said, because the communication piece is very important. But men, they used to say women is from Mars, or something, men from Mars, somebody from Venus,
women from Venus,
and men from Mars, because we have a tendency. If you
funny about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Venus is a hot place, whereas Mars is a cold place. Yeah, I guess they say men are more cold to a lot of things that women have. They're hot about that stuff.
And I'll be smiling. I'm just trying to joke. And I got to stop there, because joking sometimes is lying. And God said, don't joke or jest and do these things. But I got to get that out of me, because they'll look and even though it may be true, what I'm saying, they take an offense to it, because I shouldn't know that. And then a situation, when I know it, and they take an offense and they freeze up, and they say, oh, you don't know what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. And then when they start going into that mode, I have to pull back. Yeah. So that, when we talk about a weak, it's really meant for, weaker to me is that tenderness. Women are really tender.
You can say that.
They're a tender soul. And I think that's what Peter was saying. You weak, a weak vessel. He's talking about husbands and wives. That's why he said honor your wives as a weaker vessel, because you have to be tender with them. And men have a lot of work to do when it comes to tender. Now, if you're homosexual, you already got that tender piece, so you know how to deal with it.
I don't know how you work that in there.
Yeah, I throw it in there.
They're not interested in dealing with women.
But they still, you ever notice women always have a lot of friends that are homosexual, because they're men, but they also understand, because homosexuals are more got that emotional piece too.
I don't know what they get.
And I had a few friends that.
Yeah, but I mean, they're a little more. Let's not get over. Let's not go. Let's not get near that bridge.
Okay, so
I don't want to.
Did we beat that dead horse to death? You want to go someplace else right now?
What about emotional? Women are emotional. Women know that. They know men are emotional. But still, you just have to work those things out.
Yes.
And I think we said it before. A woman, no matter how emotional she is, she should never threaten a man, in the sense that she's going to beat him up or do certain things to him, because she don't
smacking me around a little bit,
exactly. If you enjoy that kind of thing, but I'm saying women shouldn't put fights with men.
Well,
women don't understand that. A man is going to defend himself. But a woman has to.
Women
don't
defend
understand.
themselves with their mouth. Their mouth is.
Well,
really,
yeah, but some women want to come up and get it, and
well,
stick
they
a
can smack
finger in
us
your
around.
face
They can
and do that kind of
They
stuff.
come on.
Wait a minute, what are we talking about here? You talking about? I'm not talking about. I'm not talking. Wait, no.
No, I'm talking about they can stick a finger in my face. They can smack me around.
Well, yeah, that's
They
fine.
can
But I'm
smack me if
saying,
they want to.
yeah, but what if she want to pick a fist up and boom?
They can hit me. They can go ahead and hit me. I don't think I hit them back.
Well,
Hopefully.
this is Darnell talking. Okay, that's Darnell's likely.
Mhm.
That's his likes. I don't have that like.
I
don't have that like.
So
I
I hit you then, right?
Not like that. No.
Okay.
No,
What you do? Hit them back?
I give him 2 warnings,
Okay.
and then the third strike. It's some kind.
Okay,
You gotta hold up. So
okay, metaphorically though, I mean, not metaphorically, weaker.
I've talked
She's
to.
about 5 feet. When she smack you, it won't hurt you a little bit. Come
Well,
on.
again, I said, you got to deal with that, or else a woman like a man will take advantage of it.
That's all.
Now,
right.
it's never all right. Because again,
They do it
because
anyway.
if a woman, let's say a woman does that to a man,
Mhm.
and then she meets another man, thinks she can do the same to him, and so forth, so on. Eventually, it's not going to work out. Eventually, she's going to meet the wrong person.
That's right.
Exactly.
And then
So, but again,
around and she'll understand. She come back to you then. She come, let me go to
and
grade.
then maybe I learn my lesson, and I'll take some punitive action
No, you're not
or
supposed
punishment action, however you want to call it.
No, we got it. Okay.
But anyway, see, that's what I'm saying. Just don't fight a man at all.
Yes.
And you won't have to go through this kind of
But
stuff.
we know
And
that
man ain't
protection
I'm going to necessarily pick no fight with no woman. A man ain't going to do that. So I was always saying, my mama yelling in my ear, boy, don't hit no girl.
Yeah.
And right now today, that
but
sticks with you.
you'll get 2 strikes though after that.
Yeah, I said, I'll give him a chance.
Okay.
I said, don't do that. Don't do that. But
So
anyway,
ladies, don't hit. He give you 2 chances. Don't
hit no man.
brother.
You shouldn't, because the
Okay,
Bible
yeah.
says better for a woman to dwell in the corner of a house
Okay.
than in a wide room with an angry man. So you better go to that's what God even. Either way, it don't make a difference. How many women want to? Their husband. I mean, even today, whether the women today get beat up by their boyfriends or significant others, however you want to call it, and surely women get beat up by their husbands, and those things happen. So the Bible tells us, be wise, brothers and sisters. And if you marry an angry woman, you got problems. You may not want to be in a room with a woman, an angry woman, or even in the same house with her. You come home late all the time. You come home after dinner, and you leave out before breakfast because you don't want to deal with that kind of stuff. Okay. And so you're always out the house. And then the same thing with a woman. She don't want to come home or if she's already at home. We can even talk about, should a woman be a housewife, which is another issue one of these days. But my point is that people got to understand these things. Now, a woman is not to usurp authority over a man.
That's
you
true.
got, a woman in a house. Should she put on the pants, as they say? Should the woman
You're talking
wear
about
the
husband
pants?
and wife. Now.
I'm talking about husband. Again, nowadays, people don't want to get married.
So, okay, if they live in their real life, they're really married. I always tell people they living together, they're married anyway.
Yeah, so
they
they
don't
still
got paperwork on it, but you still living in a marriage situation. So,
right.
They think that, I'm single. No, you're not, because you're living with that man for years.
And all of a sudden, they still are single.
Yeah.
They just living together.
Yeah, they single. They act like they single.
Well, then, unless they truly love one another and that kind of thing.
So they truly love each other.
And then they should get married if they really truly love one another. Because they should
legally, they put me legally.
Because there are situations where if you're not married to a person, okay, you can be living with somebody for 10 years, 15 years. And then something happened to that man or woman, and you're going to go trying to figure something out. Does that person need surgery or something? You can't do nothing.
You can't do nothing.
You have no authority.
You're legally bound. Right. Get married. Do not live
or
together
they're
with
have to
anybody.
Find somebody to authorize that surgery.
That's right.
Or the doctor's going to take it upon themselves and do it. Which if you talk, you could have been talking to your signal about this. Hey, I don't want this. I don't want that.
Right.
But the doctor's like, they don't know what you've been talking about.
Right.
They ain't paying no attention to you, sir or ma'am. They're going to do what they want to do.
Right.
When I had an operation, I had to go in for a second operation. That doctor called my wife and said, hey, Miss Sanders, we got to do such. Do we have your authorization? She said, yes. Okay, and they did it. Now, who are they going to call if you're not the person?
Exactly.
Unless you get a person, like I say, power of authority.
Power attorney. You got to work that out.
Yeah, and they say
beforehand. But then if you lead a guy and you got power of attorney, he might tell him kill you. So,
exactly.
So you got to be careful. That's why you marry.
Why put yourself in those kind of situations? Why put yourself in? Yeah. But you put yourself in those situations.
You put that because you want to have that legal document so you get anything that's deserving to you when it comes to finances, when it comes to children, when it comes to That's what I'm selling. That's what I always tell people: get married, get married. I'm not gonna live with you. I'm telling you, I'm gonna put a ring on your finger and I'm gonna marry you. I'm not going to live. I'm gonna marry you, and hopefully it's to death do you part. I know y'all don't like to put that in a nuptial anymore. They didn't taking that out of the vows, to death do you part. I said, my goodness, my goodness. We gonna switch gears now. We got about 15 minutes. We gonna switch gears, and we gonna look at, and it's similar. Well, let's look at this thing called lying. If you want to look at that, because lying is a liar is something that hurts people. When you lie, and I'm gonna let you take the first dib at that, because I can define lying. Lying is basically.
You take the first dib.
Okay.
You got pretty much.
I got notes over here. I love notes because I told you I always look things on a biblical perspective. So Proverbs said, God hates a lying tongue and a false witness who speak lies. I have lost things, lost jobs, positions and stuff like that on a liar. On a misunderstanding. But God always put intent there, because even when you're kidding, you're lying. But liars, that's how God looks at it. He looks at it, he said, don't kid, don't jest, don't kid, don't do it, because you're looking at it. I'm gonna give you a second. I'm gonna give you a second right now. A term liar refers to someone who deliberately speaks falsehoods or deceive others. And then I'm gonna give you an example. When I first got born again, God called me Jacob. So I'm a man, like me, I like to look up what Jacob name means. And Jacob named me, and I thought since he was a patriarch, I said, oh, I'm a good person. God just called me Jacob. You know what he called me? He called me a liar and deceiver. I said, whoa, that's what Jacob was. He's a liar and deceiver because he deceived. He lied and deceived his father. Anybody who lied and deceived his father, because he called you sound like Jacob, but as he saw,
God knew your heart.
Yeah,
he knew who the type of person you are.
Exactly,
and he called you out.
Well, I thought I was a good person at that time. And I found out ain't nobody good but God.
But God. So that's what we got to stop deceiving ourselves.
He deceived him out of his birthright.
Yeah, that's why we got to stop deceiving ourselves.
Yes,
thinking we're such good people.
Yes,
but God looks on the heart, and you don't even know your own heart.
That's right.
To be honest about it.
We know it after He put you through a trial.
Well, I tell you, I like the book called. I don't know if anybody read it, but I suggest anybody pick it up and read it, which is Pilgrim's Progress.
I love that book.
I'll tell you, by was it Paul Bunyan?
Yes.
And was it Paul? John Bunyan? I'm sorry. Okay. It was John Bunyan made wrote that book. It's a good book, and you can
just
look
go Pilgrim's Progress. It's a good book. Everybody should read it. Christians or non-Christians should read it because it's a good story.
Yeah, it is a good story, and you should be able to find yourself in that book.
Yes.
And I love the character. I like that character Christian. His name is called Christian, but before that,
like Christian.
If I was to insert my book, if I was to insert myself in that book, I would be Christian.
No, you wouldn't.
Yes, I would. I wouldn't be what they call it.
There's a lot of little characters. There's a lot of characters. I can find a few of you in there. But let's go ahead. I'm gonna let you.
But anyway, so before Christian became Christian, his name was Graceless. Did you know that?
Yes, and that was you. That's you. Oh, no,
I was grace.
You just say you're gonna punch a woman if she.
I said I'm grace. Sometimes I'm without grace.
Okay, go ahead.
But that's why I'm not perfect. I'm just forgiven.
Yeah,
okay?
There you go.
So there you go. So hey, but that book is a good book to read. Okay. I encourage anybody to book. And talking about books, I have a couple of books here that I wrote, and if you're interested. Yeah, I'm just going to take a second to say, you can purchase these books on Amazon called All the Bees of the Bible and Solomon's Wisdom for Wisdom.
Back to the question about liars.
Well, we can talk about a lie. I mean, we right now, so since we have this current administration that everybody seems in that administration is a liar.
It looks like that's the state of our country.
No, that's a state of, most countries have followed the lead of the leader. If you have a leader, even in the Bible, you have a leader that's a crook, deceptive, or doesn't have any relationship with God, then that person acts from out of that type of character. Okay, I'm not accusing anybody. I'm just stating a fact. When we look at the Bible, you see guys like that who were leaders, pretty much of a nation, and they were deceivers. They were what's the word I'm saying? They were hypocrites. They were drunks. They did, they lied. They did a lot of deceptive things, a lot of wicked stuff.
Okay.
They were not on the up and up. Okay, they were on the down low, doing all kinds of dirty stuff. And
sound like
then
people I know.
right, and then eventually, the people started doing the same thing because they realized that if that person can do it and nothing's happening to him, why can't I do it? So they act according to their leaders, and we can see that today, even in homes. Talking about people's lives, the way people live, their children see them how they live,
exactly,
and they
mimic their parents.
They mimic their parents. So that's why when people say things like I don't smoke.
I don't know where they get that from.
Yeah, exactly.
They got to look at them.
They got to look at themselves. What are your children learning from you?
Yes.
And that's why
they're
it's
looking at you, and you may not think that you like that, but they picking up somewhere. If they're not learning from you, they're learning at whoever they focus with.
9 out of 10 of them are learning it from you. They're looking at their parents,
and they see some discrepancy in the parents. Yes.
Of course they do.
Because they with them, the parents is with them most of the time
when
they're growing in their formative years. So therefore, they picking up a lot of traits that the parents have, and so that's why I always tell people be careful. Because I know I had a lot of different traits, and they can say, if Darnell or Tay, or they got to say, oh, he's just like his father. That kind of stuff. Yeah. So. What can you say? Now, keep on. We talking about lying.
Right, we're talking about lying, and like I say,
why can't I lie? Why can't I?
Why can't I lie? Who's going to stop you? Who's going to stop you?
Is it bad? Would it be bad for me to lie?
I would think it would be bad for you to be known as a liar, because if people come up to you and know you lying, why would they want to do business with a liar? Why would they want to talk to?
They're the wealthiest people in the world.
It don't make a difference. Then it's also said that birds of a feather flock together. So a bunch of liars get together. What they gonna do but lie? Okay. But then see, that's why what's funny? Mm-hmm. It used to be you do business. I know you're right. You know how people used to conduct business. You know how people used to conduct business.
How did they conduct business?
Okay, I'll have that stuff there for you tomorrow. Okay. And that was it. But then because they found out this man lying, they had to make a contract. That's why we had contracts.
Right.
This is what you promised. Now this is what you're doing.
Right.
Okay. Now what you're doing ain't in the contract, and you ain't fulfilling the contract. So I want my money. I'm gonna sue you, because people have learned that people can be deceiving. It used to be shake my hand, we good to go. Now it's like I could know you 20 years. You still in this contract because I don't know if you're gonna keep your word or not. Yeah. Okay. That's what happened. That's what we into today.
It's a movie out there. It's not a movie. It's a weekly program. I shouldn't be hooked on this program. It's about dealing with this guy in Harlem, black guy, Buffy Johnson or whatever. Bumpy.
Yeah, the story of that drug dealer guy.
Drug dealer. He was dealing with this. The true part about he was dealing with Malcolm X and doing all that stuff. But it's just a good storyline, and they said a lot of it is true, but a lot of it is not true. And you see the gangs, how they have the Italians on this side and the blacks on this side, and they dealing with drugs. But it's trying to paint him a picture that he's the more kinder peace, even though he's doing these things. But he's a crook,
right?
He's a kind crook, and those two things, they probably say, Darnell, you're kind, but you're a crook,
right?
Or Brady, you're kind, you're a crook. You're nice, You're a nice person, and I just won't kill you to kill you. I'm gonna kill you because you're done. So you probably harmed some people with me.
You remember DC had a guy like that?
Marion Barry?
No.
Oh, sorry.
No, Barry.
Sorry about that. Sorry, Marion.
Since it's in the news and it's out there.
Yes.
The guy's name was Rayful Edmonds.
Okay.
He was a cocaine
nice mafia guy.
Well, no, he was a cocaine dealer.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I don't care. I look at a cocaine dealer. This is my opinion. I don't care. You do that stuff, you have no love for your fellow man. You have no love for nobody.
But he was a nice guy, right?
No, he wasn't. That's what I just said. He was an evil person. But he would get the kids' parents hooked on crack and then take the kids out to McDonald's and buy it and get them something to eat because their mamas and dads out there on crack and can't feed them. So he would call himself...
He said that's a good part of him.
That was not a good part.
I mean, the storyline of it.
I don't... That's what we're saying. He was a deceiver.
We got 5 minutes, but we can...
He still was a deceiver. I personally, I have no respect for any drug dealer, any criminal like that. Ronald Reagan, introduced drugs into the black community. Okay, nobody talk about that too much. You know, because the Contra, Iran Contra affair.
Well, he denied that, so I don't know.
They never really asked him.
Well,
they never really asked him. Now they mean, oh no, he's like, oh, Mr. No, you said no, and then it just went away.
We can't. We
done said it. It's proven. But they're not going to talk about it.
It's under his administration. Just like Clinton said.
Don't get a man a pass. Don't give the man a pass.
Clinton said, I did not have sex with that woman.
And he lied, didn't he?
Well, I believe he did.
Well, all right then. So Reagan lied too when he said he didn't have nothing to do with it.
Okay. So we proved that most of these presidents, even the current administration, have a tendency to be like Jacob in a way. They have a tendency to not to be deceiving the public or deceiving parents or deceiving something. So even some of the people that that's why I say I understand the truth now, being born again. I understand there's truth and a lie. And sometimes I have to catch myself in telling a lie, you know, and because it's the intent piece that you hurt people. The intent piece that you don't know where this is going. You can hurt people's careers. You can hurt people's livelihoods. You can hurt, and you can say it wasn't intentional, but you know that's why you got to be careful to stuff to come out of your mouth or put things in writing that's not true.
Well, I'm not. I mean, I think, like they say, if you boast about something and you can prove it, then is it boasting, or you just telling the truth?
Okay.
So therefore, the truth. It can be laid at your feet, and you can do one or two things: step on it, or you can pick it up and walk with it. So that's the choices we have. Now, since we were talking about like your boy David,
about 2 minutes,
right? Remember, we
about 2 minutes.
A little earlier we were talking about David,
what he did. And that's what I love about David.
And what did he do?
He dropped to his knees.
After he
was confronted, he wasn't gonna come out.
Right, because David didn't think he did anything wrong, did he? He must have not thought he did anything wrong.
He was just having too much fun.
You can say it, you can say that. But once David realized that he was
caught.
He came into the light.
Yes.
He came out of the dark to the light. He repented.
Yes.
And God had mercy on him. But a lot of people still paid the debt.
They paid the debt. And
right.
He paid the debt too for the rest of his life.
Right.
His son.
So I'm saying if you're gonna do wrong, and you expect nobody to find out, be careful.
You will.
Because what you do in the dark will come to the light.
That's a good point to end on, because like I say, what you do in the dark, and I keep telling friends of mine, it's going to come back. God has, and I'm going to sit with this last statement. God has built things in this universe, laws in this universe, and he's got one called reaping and sowing. Whatever you plant in that ground, it's going to come up. It's going to come up to harvest. Regardless, even though you change, it's still going to come up. God will not allow us to get away with anything in this earth. So if you start off right, and please try to stay right, but if you start off right and you do a little wrong, he wants you to come back right. But that's my last statement. Whatever we focus on the most, we give strength to. Whether we focus on lying, whether we focus on people, whether we focus on whatever you focus on the most, you give strength to. So focus on God and give strength to him, and then everything else will fall in order.
And with that, I'll just simply say, stay tuned for more.
Hey, bye-bye.